This is my 2006 V70R. I've owned this car for a little over 3 years and 20,000 miles, and in that time, my wife and I have done track days and several road trips. It's hauled my dogs, bikes, and is generally a really fun car. I have just one complaint: the transmission. So today, I'm starting the process of manual swapping it, and I want to share with you the process and what it takes to do the job the right way. My goodness. Oh, Jesus. Hey there. I'm going to show you how to take this piece of crap out of your car and do it the really hard way. This is a pretty real look at what it takes to pull your automatic transmission out. I'm putting a manual transmission in the car, if you didn't already know by the title. In order to do that, you need to pull the manual trans or the automatic trans out of the car. So what I've done is I've kept the engine in the car, the steering rack, the whole subframe came out underneath it with the control arms and everything on it. It does take some time, and I learned quite a few things along the way, especially when I was pulling this thing out. I'll show you what I did and the things that I would suggest. Let's go. On the table here. This is the parts that you're going to need in order to do this swap. This is only the hardware, keep in mind, the mechanical aspects of the project. But it's worth talking about because this is the majority of the cost. So I'll break down the cost at the end of the video, everything that I paid. Spoiler, I actually got this for free. But let's start over here on this side of the table. So you're going to need 3 pedals. This is their clutch pedal. This is out of a manual car, obviously. Accelerator is a e-throttle, so it's got its own pedal assembly, but there's these 2 extra here. Kind of a pain in the butt to get this in and out of the car. We've got our slave cylinder. You're going to want to buy a new one of these. It's impossible to get this out without taking the trans out. Just do it. You got clutch, flywheel, your shifter. The shifter surround is a separate but included piece. 05, 06, 07 have a different surround than 04. Just a heads up there. We've got shifter cables. I bought a set of new shifter cables just because I wanted to not have to do this ever again. Manual angle gear. This is specific to the manual transmission. You cannot use the automatic, in this particular case, 06 angle gear. You'll need to get one out of an M66 car. Speaking of M66, we've got the transmission. Now this is a high mileage unit. I just resealed it. I checked the car that I bought it from. I drove it, shifted fine, swap out the fluids, reseal it. We're good to go. We got CV axles. Those are specific to the M66. Once again, we've got 2 Volvo units. Track Motive makes CV axles as well, and I've heard that they are working just fine for most of the people that have them. They're a much cheaper option than the Volvos, just putting that out there. You've got your master cylinder, your clutch master cylinder, that is. This is a new one. I've got a used one there. I'm just gonna put a new one in because it's a pain to do. You've got your lines that go from the reservoir. This is the brake reservoir. It's the exact same on both the manual and the auto, so you can just use the stock one that's in your car. This goes to the master cylinder. There's the clutch master cylinder, and then this goes to the pedal. It's a hydraulic system, obviously. This particular guy here is what goes from the slave cylinder to the hydraulic lines that you just saw there. So you're going to want to get a new one of these. They leak. You can't replace it, as far as I know, without pulling the trans, because you got to be able to undo this clippy boy here. Maybe you can, but probably easier to do out of the car. What else? Brackets. There's a mount bracket for the M66. Airbox is different, and I think this is the same on both cars. I don't even know what that is. That might be for the CV axle. I don't know. I'll have to investigate that afterwards. And then bolts, you kind of forget that you need bolts, but I've got the bolts from the M66 car, flywheel bolts, and axle bolts as well. And just I wanted to show you you don't need a new reservoir. So that guy there, so it exists on both the auto and manual. On the manual, that's clipped and you have a hose going to it. So all you have to do is cut that end off and then you can just connect the hose right up to that. So we don't need to buy another reservoir or even drain the system for that matter, which is great. I started this off by removing the suspension, so the front and passenger driver's side. You can leave the shock in the car. You can leave the brake caliper in the car. You're going to want to drop the subframe and leave the knuckle attached to it. Now that means the hub assembly with the backing plate for the rotor, that can all come out as an assembly. You don't have to remove any of that. In this case, I just have the shock sitting in the car. Right here you can see me disassembling the sway bar, the tie rod, and the ABS sensor coming out. Now we're under the car. I'm pulling the CV axle out. Just pulled the cap off and it should slide right out of the angle gear. But what I wanted to show you is that the angle gear and mine is leaking very profusely, which is how these fail. When they get low on oil, they burn up. So don't be like me. Change your angle gear seals, which is what we did on the new one. But we're gonna unbolt the angle gear and that's coming out next. You also have to remove the drive shaft. So you got the couple bolts there and the drive shaft should just separate. Sometimes it's kind of a pain in the butt, but we're gonna disconnect that and see how that goes. And then we can pull the angle gear out. That's gonna be a pain in the ass, I think, but we're gonna do it. And I'll show you how. Getting after these drive shaft bolts, this is what I've got set up here. It's an M8, and we've got a swivel and an extension and a big ratchet. And it's working. It's a pain in the butt, but it's working. So what I'll do is I'll just get one, rotate it, which means I've got to probably put it in neutral, and then do the next one, and do the next one, do the next one. I'm gonna get this out. I'm not gonna show you because that's gonna be boring. So here's the situation. We need to take this thing out. It's heavy, and I don't know that it's gonna fit with this oil cooler that I added, which would really suck because I don't want to drain the oil and the coolant. I mean, it doesn't need an oil change, but let's just try it. I'm gonna try to not bang you. I'm gonna try to not bump you. All right, this thing's coming out. There's no fight. It's not gonna put up a fight. There's no way this comes out. I mean, really, there's no chance. All right. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of oil in the transmission. All right, will that stay? Yes. You can't see it, but I've got an oil pan from a Raptor sitting right there. It's great. All right. Somehow I need to both simultaneously drain the oil. Oh yeah, that's a lot of transmission fluid. I feel like that's more than it should have had. Okay, so there is no way I'm getting this out with this oil cooler in here. Not a chance. Like, oh, maybe. Oh, we did it. Holy shit. That's crazy. I can't believe it. All right. That's how you do that. So that's what we're looking at. That's our auto spline system. Looks way different than that of the manual, which makes sense because it's a different transmission. This is that pan I was telling you about. That's working just fine. And there's our angle gear, which was leaking profusely. Profusage. Torque converter bolts. I'm showing you how I'm doing it because it's kind of a pain. So it's a 30 mil socket up on top, turning it clockwise until we see. You see one? There it is. T50 Torx. I'm going to go ahead and remove them all. There's 6 in total. So remove all 6. Remove that. put the big old breaker bar on there so I can hold it. Got a T50. We're going to put that on a big ratchet. In this case, it's a torque wrench. Get that thing in there real good. And then we'll hold that. And we'll break it free. There's a lot of Loctite on it. And that's how you do it. And then I'm just taking my impact gun and getting it all the way out of there quickly. Sweet. There you go. Nice little close up for you what that looks like. And then this guy here. Nothing too crazy. All right, I got 3 of them. 3 more to go. I actually realized I don't have a clip showing me taking the starter out of the car. I just take all the bolts out, the wiring, and all this other crap around it, and I never actually show it coming out. And that's because it was a huge pain. Mine was like fused to the transmission. So what I ended up doing was stopping the camera, getting really pissed, and hitting it a bunch of times with a hammer, and it came right out. Whether it's gonna work again or not, couldn't tell you. But there's going to be 4 or 5 connections where there are wires kind of in the way. You just remove the bolts and kind of move the wires. And then there's 2 bolts, actually 3 holding the starter in place. And then you can sort of hit it with a hammer like you're seeing there. I just got a little bit more aggressive with a like a pry bar and a bigger hammer in it, and it came right off. So without the angle gear in the way, we're able to access the engine mounts. So I'm disconnecting the bolts underneath. There's actually, this system here is a little bit interesting. You got a bolt that sits on the power steering rack. It doesn't sit on it, but this sits on the power steering rack, then bolts into it. And then you have a bolt that goes between the transmission and the mount here. So you can reach this nut pretty easily on top. It's a 15 mil, and then on the bottom it's a 13 mil. Getting on the bottom one is a little tricky. Let me show you what I did. Basically, I used a 1/4 inch drive extension with a 1/4 inch to 3/8 with the 13 mil on top. And what that allows you to do, the bolt would have been right there. So you can just sneak in and get that in there and then put a nice big bar on here. I don't know, mine wasn't too tight. This isn't obviously gonna hold a ton of torque, but it worked just fine for me. I think that's probably the easiest way of getting that. And then you can remove the this other engine mount sitting here. Let's see if I can show you a little bit better. Yep. And then the bolt is underneath, another 13 mil. And then we're gonna unbolt this one here. That's the engine sits on this side. And then we've got this engine mount here. This is the dog bone underneath. We'll just undo probably that one. We've still got some stuff to do in the back and all the lines that are connected up under here. I'm gonna keep moving. I'm getting tired, but here, let me show you what I did. So I found that there was one bolt that I did not undo for the steering rack. So that's why it wasn't coming out. And what I now have is a steering rack that's loose, and I just zip tied it up and out of the way. Yep, so you can see zip ties, they go up to the body. And the same thing on this side over here. A steering rack that's zip tied up and out of the way. So now if you can see the whole thing's moving. So we should be able to lower the subframe. Now, one thing we're gonna have to pay attention to is currently the exhaust is hitting. So as we're going down, we're gonna need to go forward. I might just take these brackets off when I pull the engine out, or when I pull the subframe down. I just couldn't get these bolts out without like damaging them. It seemed like they were gonna break. So maybe we can do that a little easier when we get this thing out. I'm gonna just start carefully lowering it now. Right, so we're dropping the subframe. That's what we're looking at possibly doing. We're gonna find out how this is gonna work. Currently the engine is being supported pretty well by the engine hoist, and then I've got the jack underneath that's going to bring the subframe down. Control arms and all that are going to come with it, as well as the sway bars. I don't know if I've gotten everything. We're about to find out. I'm guessing I didn't. All right. Right. Well, subframe is dropping. Take that, just so it stays down. Okay. All right, so we're to the point where subframe's coming out. We were hung up on the exhaust in the back, so we're gonna careful this thing out of here. We're free of everything. It's just a matter of bringing this thing down without slamming it on the ground and destroying everything underneath. Swapped out the actual hoist for the crossbar. I got this guy from Harbor Freight. It's okay. It's kind of sketchy, but it's holding it. The engine is very cocked in the bay, but it's in there and it's supporting everything. The reason I did this was because getting the jack underneath this whole situation with these legs in the way was pretty tough. Ultimately, I think I would do it this way from the start next time. What we're gonna do now, because I have it on quick jacks, I'm gonna try to lower the car down. I'm gonna pull all the bolts out of the bottom and then just remove the top ones after the fact. Once it's all the way down, then I can drop the transmission onto a rollable cart and not have to worry about lowering it down. It should be a little easier. The only sketchy thing is these quick jacks, when you've pulled weight out of the front of the car, they tend to be a little tippy. So right now, I actually have some jacks, you can see them back there, holding up the rear of the car. This is like a whole jigsaw puzzle thing. Ignore the extraordinarily long board here. I just did not want to cut it down because I don't feel like digging out my saw. Anyway, the car is all the way down on the quick jacks. It is kind of, the transmission's kind of sitting on this rollable cart that I have with two boards, just lift it up slightly. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the last two bolts that are holding in the transmission. And I just realized that I also need to undo the lower hose down here. That lower hose right there needs to come out. Otherwise, we're gonna rip it out of the transcooler, AKA the radiator. And we also need to undo that guy. That's on the transmission. So let's go ahead and get those two things undone. And then two bolts there. I think that's all the bolts that I have in. Yeah, and the transmission should just boop, boop. And then we can probably lift it and leave the trans on its butt right there. That's the hope. Let's find out. So in this process, you can see me, or you will see me, using the quick jack, which is what raises and lowers the car, to move the car away from the transmission. In reality, most people probably don't have quick jacks. They're probably doing this on jack stands. You could probably achieve this exact same thing by using a trans jack underneath this, like one of those floor jack style with a bigger footprint sort of situations. I think that would probably work just as well as this. But a few notes on actually pulling this out. The original, actually separating the engine from the transmission was very difficult. I ended up on the bottom of the transmission, front and back, wedging a pry bar and carefully tapping it in and then starting to pry equally on both sides. That was able to separate the engine and the transmission just fine. And then it was just a matter of, you know, tipping it out correctly, because you can see the center of mass of this transmission is in like the top and the back of it, and therefore it does not want to come out straight. And so you probably need to support the backside of this transmission more with a piece of wood than I did here. That would probably help you out quite a bit. These pins were super rusted and like stuck. You can see one of them actually stayed in the engine. We're gonna go ahead and hop into the interior of the car and start by removing the seat so we can get the pedals, the shifter, and the shift cables out of the way. You guys actually haven't seen the center console come out yet, but it's missing in this clip. You want to pull the seat before you do anything else, and so I'm showing you the steps that you want to proceed in. So don't do as I did, do as I suggest. Let's go ahead and pull this seat out, take the seat bolts out, and I'm gonna have to probably turn on power to the car for this as well. Looks like Mr. Kim's gonna help me. Get that one out of there. Get that one out of there. We'll be able to clean the carpet too, so not a bad idea. You're definitely going to want to have battery power for this portion of the disassembly. You want to be able to move the seat forward and backwards a couple of times to get everything you need. The single hardest part of this entire build has been removing these bolt covers. I don't know how they designed such an intricate and secure piece, but props to Volvo. This was the hardest thing. Honestly, I still don't know the right way of removing them. The YouTube video I watched, funny enough, shows just prying on both sides of the cover at the same time, and it pops right off. It breaks the clip that's underneath of it. So I don't know how to help you with that. Good luck. But here you can see me moving the seat all the way back, and this is so that I can get underneath it and remove all the wiring. So once the wiring's done, you can move the seat forward, kind of in like a mid lean forward position, and remove the headrest and pull the thing out. Make sure you disconnect the seatbelt first. You can see me just doing that. Remove the side cover, remove the seatbelt, and then pop it out of the car. It sounds easier than it is. Frankly, it's really heavy. So good luck to you. This is Mr. Kimmy. Hey, bud. Kimmy. Hi, bud. How you doing, man? You just hanging out? You just hanging out. Mr. Kim, he's 5. He's a corgi, obviously. We got him in April, on actually April 20th. Mr. Kim was at a shelter because his past family didn't want him, which was a real shame and a real loss for them, honestly, because he's such a sweet boy. He was 52 pounds when we got him, and he's down to what are you, 36 now? You're the right weight. He was just such a good boy. So this is Mr. Kim. He's a garage pup. We're in the car. We're going to take the interior out of this thing so that we can put the pedals and the shifter. We'll also look at the associated wiring that you got to do when you're in the interior of the car. So we're going to start taking this guy off, and I think we'll pop the surround for the e-brake cable, and then we'll probably pull this whole centerpiece out to pull this back. I think it'll make our lives just a little bit easier. So we can start. I'm gonna grab some tools to do this because it's bad for your fingers. That guy just pops like that. There we go. Pops like that. I'm using that yellow tool to press in the tabs that hold the shifter to that surround, and then it pops right out. And then the same thing here. Nice. That one as well. Okay, and then we can pop the shifter surround. Now this will be replaced by a manual surround, so we will not be using that again. That will be for sale. Right, we're gonna need some Torx bits to take all of these guys out because we're gonna pull the whole center console.
how does this come out of here? Just like that. All right. And then I should be able to just shimmy this guy. Aha, yes. We can go ahead and clean that. Look at how nasty that is. We got 2 Torx. I'll get you the number in a minute. T25s, which we okay. Now, this guy should come off. Nice. And then the same with this side, probably. I can show you. Right here. You're just rotating that 90 degrees. Okay, with the key you can shift it into neutral pretty easily. And now we should hopefully be able to get this out of here a little bit easier. Still gonna be this fucking e-brake, man. It's 10 millimeter. Not sure that that is helpful or not, but we're gonna find out. So get that over that, and then should be able to just lift it out and completely the light thing. Oh my goodness, this is not how you should do this. Be smarter than me. Be smarter than me. Okay, I got that out of there. I backed this off, put this in neutral, and I was able to lift the center console out pretty easily. So that's about as far as we need to go with that. So it would be way easier to not have a seat in the car, if I'm being honest. Pulling the seat out would be a lot of work. I don't want to do that. I'm gonna be lazy for now and just keep doing stuff. Found a quarter, so we're gonna unplug this, and we're just gonna start undoing stuff. Oh my goodness. Did that break? Yeah, that broke. Ah, damn, man. I think that kind of makes this thing useless. Don't do that. I just pried on this. I don't know how to disassemble that correctly, man. Maybe this is replaceable. I completely snapped that off, though. This is why I do this, so you can see what not to do. That's the side shift piece here. That's it's like a neutral lockout or something. Yep.
This is actually a shift interlock cable. Prevents the car from being put into a gear with the key in the off position.
See that? This is a neutral lockout. So when I put the key in the ignition and I turn it, you can see this neutral lockout extends. So that is how it keeps it from moving. Keeps the shifter from moving when your car is, the key is in the off position. So that's all based on this guy here. We got a bunch of spliced wires here. This is good. Where does this even go, man? I gotta figure that out. And then I got a pink wire that looks like it's been terminated. Oh, so here we've got this little clip. This is for the shifter, for the shift mechanism. We're just going to disconnect that clip. We'll pry that clip out. Ah, yes. So this one comes out like this, and then you rotate and it falls out to never be seen again. But I did get it. Now I can pull that off. Perfect. And then down here, we got to pry this piece towards the camera, and then I should be able to pull the shifter out. Oh yeah, looks like there's like a little tab you got to depress. So we'll take a pick.
I never actually showed it in the video, but here's what we're looking at. It's broken. There was a tab that would be on this side, and you just have to take a pick and push it away, but this plastic was very brittle and it ended up breaking.
All right, I just popped these vents out of the way because I want to be able to pull this cable out, because there's no way I'm going to be able to feed like this. There's this big end on the shifter right here. That's not going to be able to get fed through that way because, you know, there's a plate on the actual firewall bracket, front of dash bracket, whatever you want to call that. And all of this isn't going to get fed through here, through like the center console area. So if I unbolt this and this, maybe I can drop this module in the bracket out the bottom here. And then I've got a gap I can put everything through. So I'm going to try that. Hey. That worked. Sweet. All right, well, just so we don't damage this, we'll get that unplugged. Go ahead and leave that, and then we can just fish this through here, which is way easier. Oh yeah. Okay. That was way easier than I expected it to be. The manual one was a real pain in the butt to get out of there.
But let's do the pedal box. Let me show you what I'm doing up underneath here. You can see the ratchet right there. There's 4 bolts that hold the brake booster on that are also holding the pedal assembly. So we're gonna remove all 4 of those. We got 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And then there's actually 2 more that are, I'll have to find them and show you because I can't see them right now.
All right, we're doing the top bolts. So,
Got the extension going through there, and then it actually comes out. So you can see it right there. There's 1 bolt. There it is. Yep, that's the other bolt. And we're gonna reach it from doing the exact same thing that we're doing from the top, so.
well, we got the pedal out. What I did was I removed everything. So I actually removed the steering shaft. So the perks of having the subframe and all this other shit out, you know, you can drop the steering rack, and that allows you to remove the steering shaft easily. So the bottom fell out, which I needed to replace that piece anyway, and I actually pulled this steering shaft off as well. Anyway, I removed the steering shaft. That's gonna make it way easier to put the pedal box up and in, because getting this guy out was pretty tough, and the manual one is twice as wide, as you can see. So yeah, this should go in fairly straightforward now. I mean, it's still gonna be a pain, but easier. What else? The brake sensor has to come off, and this is a little bit tricky. You can look up a YouTube video. There's actually one that's very self-explanatory. I think the guy's like Finnish or something doing it. We're gonna have to remove the blanking plate, which I believe is right there. You can actually see the cutout, and that's where the hydro lines are gonna go for the clutch. So we'll have to cut out that piece of insulation and remove the blank plate, and then fish the clutch master cylinder and lines through, and then connect that all up. What are we doing? Removing this. This is the lockout cable for the auto shifter. So we don't need that anymore. We're gonna go ahead and remove it. So it's tucked up underneath the dashboard. Right here. So I've removed the bottom cover. Top one was already off. I'm gonna go ahead and pull that line out. You definitely don't need to do this, but I'm going to. Let me see if I can show you. All right, so here's the cable right there. Now, I was playing around with it. I had undone this locking tab here. All right, here's the secret. You pop the tab like I was showing you. You push the tab. Oh, well, I guess we're gonna find out together. So watch. I got the key, I turned it off. As in, like, turned it to the lock position. If I press in this tab, I'm gonna put you down. Hopefully you can still see. Press down the tab.
you can pull it a little bit. You can pull it a little bit. If you turn the key to the full on position, then you're able to actually pull this thing all the way out like that. Perfect. Now I don't have that anymore. I don't know if this is going to set any faults, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the one in from the other steering column. I'm just going to put it, it's like a dummy plug. All right. Sorry for the abrupt ending here on the shifter or the neutral lockout. I did not record putting the dummy plug in, but I can assure you it's as easy as plugging it in. Finding one might be a little difficult. I was lucky enough to have a spare steering column. I said in the video that I was going to show you the wiring, flashing, the modules, and the total cost breakdown. Well, I'm actually not going to do that in this video. I'm going to make a separate video on the wiring and the module flashing because I think being detailed, it's going to take probably another 10 to 15 minutes. You can watch that one in your own time. And then at the end of the swap video, I will break down the cost. I actually have it all, but I got to keep you around for something else, right? So that'll be in a different video itself. So that was everything that needs to be removed in order to get your car prepped to be a manual transmission. There's some nuanced things that I forgot, but if there's any steps that you're looking to see that I didn't cover, please comment down below and I will do my best to show you the parts or the process. I have a ton of video. It's just really hard to put it all into a short, concise film, right? So anyway, thanks for watching. Stick around for the rest of the swap. Spoiler, it's already in the car and it's ready to go. That video is coming shortly. Thanks.